They say funerals are for the living, not the dead. But that day, it didn't feel like it was for me. It felt like it was for her. For my mother. For the show. The performance. The image of a grieving widow she needed everyone to believe. I stood beside my father's coffin in a too small black suit, staring at a hole in the ground that would soon swallow the man who raised me. My throat was dry. My chest tight. I hadn't said a word since the night before. People spoke softly around me. They whispered cliches. He was a good man. He's in a better place. He'll always be watching over you. But none of that helped. None of it meant anything. The only thing I could think about was how hollow the world felt without him in it, and how wrong it felt that the woman standing a few feet away was already slipping out of grief and into something else. She wore black, sure, but her lipstick was fresh, her heels too high, her posture too composed. And beside her, with one hand brushing lightly against her lower back, stood a man I barely knew. Jeff. I remembered him from a few awkward family barbecues. He always lingered near the beer cooler, too friendly, too familiar. My dad used to stiffen whenever he came near. I saw it. I remembered it. But back then, I didn't understand why. Now I did. He wasn't just a family friend. He was already part of her life. Maybe he had been for months. Maybe longer. And now, with my dad's body still unburied, he was here, standing where my father should have stood. I clenched my fists so hard my nails bit into my palms. After the service, we returned to the house. Our house. The one my father built with his bare hands over 10 years. Every wall, every cabinet, every floorboard, he had poured himself into that place. It was more than wood and paint. It was part of him. And yet, when I walked through the door, something had shifted. There were boxes in the hallway. Not funeral-related. Not floral. Packing boxes. I froze. My room, my stuff, was stacked by the front door. Books, clothes, trophies. All crammed together like someone had cleaned out a storage unit. Mom, I asked, voice breaking. She didn't even look up. She was at the kitchen table with Jeff, sipping coffee like nothing had happened. Like my dad hadn't just been lowered into the earth hours ago. Oh, she said casually. Good, you're home. We need to talk. I stared at her, numb. What is this? I gestured toward the boxes. She finally looked at me. Her eyes were blank. Tired, maybe, but not sad. You're almost 17, she said. You're old enough to figure things out. I need space. I blinked. Space. She stood, arms crossed, as if she were talking to a roommate she was tired of, not her son. Jeff's going to be staying here. Permanently. We've been through a lot, and I need stability. My jaw dropped. You mean he's moving into Dad's room? She didn't answer, which was an answer all its own. I took a step back, like I'd been punched. I'm your son. You're a young man, she said coolly. And young men don't live off their mothers forever. There's a spare room at Gwen's house. You can stay there for a bit. She already said it's fine. Gwen. My dad's cousin. She lived across town and had 3 screaming toddlers. I looked from my mother, to Jeff, back to the boxes. That was it. That was her decision. After 17 years of raising me, after burying her husband, she picked him, the man who probably started this whole betrayal long before my dad's heart gave out. And she threw me out like I was some inconvenient leftover from a life she no longer wanted. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just picked up the boxes, walked out the door, and never looked back. But inside, something cracked. Something deep. Because that night, as I sat on Gwen's itchy couch, holding my father's folded flag in my lap and staring at the ceiling, I swore to myself, I will come back. And when I do, it won't be to beg. It'll be to take back what's mine. I wish I could say Gwen's place felt like a home, but it didn't. It was loud, crowded. Her kids screamed nonstop. The TV was always blaring cartoons, and the couch I slept on reeked of sour milk and Play-Doh. I spent most nights staring at the ceiling, trying to tune it all out with headphones that barely worked. But none of that was the worst part. The worst part was the silence from my mom. Not a single call. Not a text. Not a check-in dot. She didn't ask where I was sleeping. Didn't ask if I had food dot. She just erased me. Like I'd been part of some chapter she was happy to rip out. And Jeff? He moved into my dad's house like he owned it. His truck in the driveway. His shoes at the door. His stupid laugh echoing through the home that used to feel safe. I saw pictures on Facebook. Yes, she still posted like everything was normal. One of them at the kitchen table, smiling. Another where Jeff was standing on the back porch holding a beer. Same porch where Dad used to sit at sunset, humming old country songs and telling me stories about when he was young. Now, Now it was like he'd never existed. At school, I kept my head down. I stopped talking in class. Teachers didn't ask questions. My friends tried at first, but I pushed them away. I didn't want to explain. Didn't want the pity. I was drowning quietly, and no one saw. The only person who did was Tom. Tom was my dad's best friend. They'd served together overseas. He was gruff, a little rough around the edges, always smelled like motor oil and old coffee, but he had a good heart. When I was little, he used to bring me little carved wooden animals he made in his garage. One day, out of nowhere, he pulled up outside Gwen's house in his beat-up pickup. Didn't say much, just leaned out the window and said, "Get in." He brought me back to his place, a small one-bedroom with a dusty garage out back, and showed me something that nearly broke me. A wooden box, handcrafted, with my initials burned into the lid. "Your dad left this with me about a year ago," Tom said. "Told me to hang on to it, just in case." I opened it with shaking hands. Inside were a few old tools, a pocket knife I remembered from our camping trips, and a sealed envelope with my name on it. My breath caught. I opened it slowly. The paper inside was yellowed, the ink slightly faded. But the words? Burned into my soul. "Son, if you're reading this, something's gone wrong. And I'm sorry I didn't get to say goodbye the way I wanted to. I know your mother. I know how she can be when she's scared. And I know Jeff. I've known for a while. That house, it was meant for you. You were always the one who understood why I built it the way I did. There's a safe in the office. Behind the cabinet, under the false panel. Code's your birthday. Don't forget the year. Everything's in there. The truth. Protect what's yours. Love, Dad." I just sat there, frozen, the letter trembling in my hands. I must have read it 10 times, each word sinking deeper than the last. He knew. He tried to protect me. He'd seen what she was capable of, and still, he believed in me. For the first time in weeks, I felt something other than anger. I felt purpose. That night, I barely slept. I just lay in Tom's spare room, staring at the ceiling, heart racing, playing out every possible scenario. I would go back to that house. Not to argue, not to scream, but to find the truth, to open the safe, to see what my father had left behind for me. Because if she thought she could bury his memory along with him, she was about to find out just how wrong she was. I waited 3 nights. 3 long, suffocating nights. Watching, timing, planning. From the corner across the street, I sat in the dark with a hoodie pulled over my head, memorizing every flick of the porch light, every shadow behind the curtains. I learned when Jeff left for his bar crawls, when Mom turned off the TV, when the kitchen light finally went dark. The house no longer looked like home. It looked like a stranger's place. My father's tools were gone from the shed. His truck sold. The garden we'd planted together, dug up and replaced with patio furniture and a gas grill Jeff probably couldn't even operate. Still, I knew every inch of that house. I knew which floorboard creaked, which window was loose, and exactly where my dad had once said, "If you ever need to sneak out, use this one." Now I wasn't sneaking out. I was coming back in. It was 12:47 a.m. when I made my move. I crossed the yard like a ghost, slipped behind the garage, and pried up the old basement window. The air that hit me as I slid inside was thick, stale with cologne, beer, and something that didn't belong. I crept up the stairs like I had 100 times as a kid sneaking snacks. But this time, my pulse thudded like war drums in my ears. I reached the hallway. Every memory came rushing back. Birthdays, fights, laughter, Sunday dinners. All of it buzzing around me like ghosts trapped in the walls. I didn't stop, didn't hesitate. The office door was closed. I turned the knob and stepped inside. Time stopped. Everything looked untouched. The desk, the filing cabinet, the faded photograph of me and my dad at the lake still pinned to the corkboard. I swallowed hard and dropped to my knees. I moved the cabinet slowly. It scraped softly against the floor, like it remembered the last time it had been moved, by my dad's strong, steady hands. Behind it, the wall looked normal, but I remembered. The panel on the bottom right corner was fake. I pried it gently. Click. It popped loose. Behind it, just like he said, was the safe. I reached out, entered my birthday. Month, day, year. Beep, beep, beep. Click. It opened. Inside was everything. A thick envelope, a flash drive, a small velvet pouch that held my dad's dog tags. I held them to my chest for a moment, unable to breathe. Then I opened the envelope. Legal papers. A will. Signed. Dated. Stamped. I, Mark Allen Prescott, hereby leave my estate, property, house, land, and all material contents to my biological son. My name was printed clearly. No ambiguity. No loopholes. My dad had made sure of that. I flipped through each page, taking pictures with shaking hands, uploading them instantly to the cloud, to a drive, to an email I created just for this. Anything to protect it. Because I knew if she ever found this, she'd destroy it. As I placed everything back inside the safe and resealed the panel, I heard a sound. Footsteps. Upstairs. I froze. She was awake. I didn't breathe. Didn't move. The house was silent again for a long, eternal moment. Then the bedroom door creaked and closed. I exhaled so slowly it felt like I'd aged a year. I backed out of the room, retraced my steps, and vanished through the same basement window I'd come through, this time with something far more powerful than anger. I had proof. This house wasn't hers. It was mine, and I wasn't going to let her get away with pretending otherwise. It's one thing to know the truth. It's another to prove it, especially when you're 17, broke, and standing up against your own mother. But I wasn't backing down. I took the will, the photographs, the flash drive, everything my father had left, and I brought it straight to the same lawyer who'd once helped him register his business. His name was Mitchell. Gray hair, steady hands, no-nonsense tone. He remembered my dad immediately. When I handed him the documents, he took his glasses off, read the first page, and raised an eyebrow. "Son," he said slowly, "this changes everything." The next few weeks were chaos. Letters were sent, hearings scheduled. And just like that, my mother, who hadn't looked me in the eyes since the funeral, was forced to face me again. In court, she showed up dressed like a widow from a soap opera. All black, pearls, crocodile tears already glistening in the corners of her eyes. Jeff slouched beside her in a wrinkled blazer, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. I sat quietly at my table, documents in hand, surrounded by silence so thick it pulsed like a heartbeat. When the judge entered, my chest tightened. This was it. Her lawyer tried to start strong. They argued the will must have been outdated, that my mother was unaware of its existence, that she'd assumed she was the rightful heir. They painted her as a grieving woman just trying to survive. But then Mitchell stood up. He presented the signed will, the time-stamped photos, the notarization. He showed the court the safe location, explained the letter my father left me, played the audio file from the flash drive, my dad's voice saying, "This house is for my boy." There was no question. The judge listened, silent, stone-faced. Then he turned to my mother. "Do you have any document that supersedes this?" Her lips parted, then shut. Her lawyer shook his head. She stood up slowly. And that's when the performance began. She wept. Loud, dramatic, shaking sobs. She told the court I was manipulated. Said I had changed since my father's death. That I was punishing her for moving on. She blamed grief. Stress. Claimed I was unstable. "He's a child," she said. "A child. He doesn't understand what this is doing to me." I didn't flinch. Because this wasn't about her tears. This was about justice. The judge finally raised his hand. Enough. The courtroom fell silent. I've seen the documents. I've heard the testimony. I've reviewed the timeline. This will is valid. The house legally belongs to the plaintiff. His father's intent is clear. He paused. And ma'am, evicting your underage son from his legal residence was not only unethical, it was criminal. Her face collapsed. Her mouth opened, then closed. Jeff muttered something under his breath and slouched lower in his seat. The judge's gavel came down. One sentence. Clear. Cold. Final. You have 72 hours to vacate the premises. I walked out of that courtroom with the sun on my face and fire in my chest. She didn't speak to me. Didn't look back. But I didn't care. Because I was no longer that boy standing in the hallway with boxes at his feet. I was a son who defended his father's name. I was the rightful heir to the home built by love, not lies. And I had taken back what was mine.